Hello, everyone, and welcome to Lesson 1.5 in the Historical Investigations Unit, which is outlining your essay. So, by the end of the lesson today, you should be able to do the following. You should have part of the historical investigation outline completed. So, let's jump right on in. Here are a couple of things for us to think about before we actually begin the process of the outlining of our historical investigation. First, you need to make sure that you have ensured that you have all of the information that you need to write this essay. So, the last few classes you've been looking at sources, so you need to take a moment now to look and see, okay, at this point, I think I have, my 10 sources. I have hopefully you have more than 10 because you should have about 13 to 15. So if you have that, then great, you have all the information that you need. So this outline, we're going to use this outline to determine a couple of things. First, whether you need to do any more research. That's the reason why you do the outline, because when you start putting things in there, it's going to show you there's gaps here and you need to find other resources to fill it in. You can also find out whether you can successfully argue this thesis, because if you find out that even with 13 sources that you don't have enough information to argue your thesis, then it's going to require you to either change the question or change your sources that you have. It's also going to help you determine whether you found two strong supporting points, because perhaps your thesis needs to be reworked that your arguments are not going to be able to be congruent because you have to find another supporting point, because this one clearly isn't going to be one that can work for you. And the outline can also tell us whether you actually have enough information for your counterpoint or not. So on the flip side of the same coin, this outline tells us whether you have enough information for that. And the reason why we're actually showing you this graphic over here is that when you write your essay, you are going to write your essay in this exact order. It is a standard 5-paragraph essay. You will start out with your introduction paragraph. Your first body paragraph is your counterclaim paragraph, followed by 2 supporting point paragraphs and a concluding paragraph. Now, in that first paragraph, that's your introduction paragraph or thesis paragraph, there is actually a thesis formula that you should follow. And here it is. It's called BCLC X, however A and B, therefore Y. This should look familiar because you should have been taught this in grades 9 and 10 already. So, first of all, broader context is the big picture background. Local context is specific background information. We'll discuss these further in a moment. X is your strongest argument against you or your counterclaim. A and B are your 2 pieces of information that are strongly supportive of your argument. And then thesis is your actual argument or your statement, your claim. This is the claim that you're going to be making. Now, breaking the thesis paragraph down further, let's look at broader context and local context. Now, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. This is the most difficult part of the thesis formula. And the reason being is because everyone always gets these two confused. Broader context and local context. I'm going to try to put this in simplest terms. Broader context is the big picture background information. Local context is more specific. So here's an example. This example says Germany post World War I. So this is going to be talking about, the Weimar Republic, the economic troubles that Germany is facing in the 1920s, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's all big picture background information. But we're going to take it a step further and give it more specific, because we're now going to talk about Adolf Hitler. Because your essay question may have been something about how post-World War I Germany led to the rise of Adolf Hitler or something like that. That would be broader context than local context. Another example of that would be the slave trade is a more general background, and then slavery in Virginia is much more specific. Another example, fashion in the 1920s is general, but American women's fashion in the 1920s is much more specific. Now, one thing that you should always remember, you should not, under any circumstances, start this paragraph with your thesis statement. Very, very clear on that. The thesis formula is BCLC at the beginning. Do not put your thesis statement as the first line in this thesis formula. Now, the counterclaim paragraph, which is X, is something not to stress yourself out about at all. Just express the sentence in very simple form. This is a simple sentence. There's nothing bougie about it in any capacity. So one thing to keep in mind as you're going through this, do not contextualize your counterclaim at this point. The reason being is that you have a whole paragraph for that. That first body paragraph is the counterclaim paragraph, and that's going to give you the opportunity to put all the contextualization that you desire. Now, how do you start this sentence? Here are two perfect examples. First, some historians have argued that, and then you would continue on, Adolf Hitler was blah, 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 blah. Or some historians have argued that Barack Obama did la, 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 la. That's one example. Another example would be, one could reason that Benjamin Franklin's discovery of electricity, whatever. Okay, so that is how use these. Do not deviate from this. Try to use this because these specific, introduction things were specifically given to you to help build a strong thesis paragraph for you and a strong thesis point claim for you by the IB. Now, you're going to immediately negate this either in the same sentence or in the next one, depending on how you write your counterclaim sentence. But you're going to immediately negate it because you're going to start giving your supporting points in the next section. So here we are to points A and B, which are your supporting points. Now you're going to present the two strongest pieces of evidence that support your thesis, again without contextualizing it, because you have two body paragraphs that are devoted to do that. You should include, however, to make it clear that you are negating your counterclaim with this information. This word here is very, very important. I cannot tell you. That's why I'm circling it constantly. This is very, very important because it sends a very clear message to your reader that, okay, I just told you something and now I'm getting ready to tell you the exact opposite. Okay? You have to use the word however, and the reason being is because it sends a very clear message to the reader that you are now getting ready to tell me or to whoever's reading your paper that you're getting ready to say something that's directly contrary to what you just said. Now, you can also present the counterclaim and the A and B in the same sentence. Some people choose to do that because it sounds better for them or works better in their word choice. So here's an example of how that would look. Some historians have argued that blah, 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 blah. However, this person didn't do da, 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 and la, 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 whatever. So this is a perfect way of combining those two things together and still get the same effect. And lastly, you have your thesis statement, which is the very last sentence in your thesis paragraph. In history, your thesis statement is just the statement of the stance that you are taking. That's it. There's nothing else, again, bougie with this at all. This is your statement that you're just making boldly. So how do I know that this is going to be your claim? This is your key word. Just like the word however was for the previous information, therefore is now the key word that tells me this is your thesis statement. This is your claim. You're making a bold, clear statement. So your thesis statement should be the answer to your research question. So when you say this sentence, therefore, blah, 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 if that does not answer what your RQ was, then we have a problem. Okay? So if you make this statement, therefore, blah, 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 and it answers your research question, then that is a plus. Okay? So here is just a graphic showing you the thesis format and just a smaller notation. Insert broader context, insert local context. Some historians have argued that put your counterclaim. However, first support and second support, that should be second support. Therefore, here's your thesis statement. Bada boom, bada bing. You may not exceed 2 supporting points. You must have 1 counterclaim and 2 supporting points, period. This is not going to be a 6-paragraph essay. You must keep the 5-paragraph essay format, period. You may not deviate from this exact sentence order at all. You must keep it. You cannot move in any capacity, so this thesis formula is required. As outlined in this paragraph, your counterclaim paragraph comes before your supporting points. And you do not need to include your research question. Your research question is going to be done in the OPCVO part, so do not even think about putting the research question in this essay part at all. So for your body paragraphs, so you have your counterclaim and 2 supporting paragraphs are your body paragraphs. And so you should have no more than 3. So this is only going to be a 5-paragraph essay, so that only means that you have 3 body paragraphs, so keep that in mind. 1 counterclaim, 2 supporting paragraphs. All 3 of these paragraphs need evidence and analysis, period. End of discussion. Must have evidence, must have analysis. What is evidence? It is compelling historical fact, often primary source information, can be secondary, but it's often primaries. And the reason being is that this is going to be your newspaper articles and things like that. So when you tell me that so and so assassinated such and such and so, well, I don't want to hear that from a social studies textbook. I want to hear that from the front page of the New York Times. Okay, that's going to give me evidence that, yeah, okay, this really did happen. Analysis is your explanation of what it means and then why it matters to your argument. That's all you have to do in a body paragraph is give me evidence and give me analysis, and you're good to go. So here's a very nice graphic for you to always keep in mind when you're writing counterclaim paragraphs or even claim paragraphs. The acronym is T. This is a perfect thing for you to remember. You may have already been taught it, but here it goes again. First of all, T stands for the topic, sentence, evidence, and analysis, and this is exactly how you should write your paragraph. So topic sentence is identifying the argument that counters your thesis. Now we're talking about only the counterclaim paragraph. So you're going to identify the argument that counters your thesis claim that you had just made in the sentence prior, because the sentence prior was the very last sentence of your introduction paragraph, which should be your thesis statement according to the thesis formula. So then the very first sentence that's in the next paragraph, which is your counterclaim paragraph, is this topic sentence, which identifies the argument that counters that very thesis you had just written. Then you're going to tell us the evidence, which is historical information that is used to counter your argument. So you're going to have that evidence that's going to, that's going to try to support this, not support, that's going to be, that's going to support the counterclaim. So that's what you're trying to do. This is evidence that's going to be countering my argument, but it's, going to be supporting your counterclaim. Then the analysis is explaining what this evidence means. So explain any historical context needed to understand this information. So if you feel the need that the reader may be a little confused about something, you can flush in some historical context here. And you want to explain this argument is wrong and weak or inadequate or flawed. You have to explain, since you just said that, this is your counterclaim, that this is evidence that people could use against you, then you have to tell us how that evidence is wrong. So you have to show us what that evidence would be. So you're kind of like being a lawyer in a courtroom. And so you're basically trying to say, okay, I know the guy next to me is getting ready to throw this evidence at you, Your Honor. So I'm going to go ahead and throw it at you now and tell you why that when he tells you that this is the information, I'm going to tell you why it's wrong. So that's what you're doing here, is telling me why the evidence that you just showed me is wrong. And then at the end of this counterclaim paragraph, you want to end with a sentence that reiterates your 2 supporting points. So it's kind of a nice connection that says, okay, well, here's all this reason why this stuff is bad and wrong. And then let me give you this one sentence, maybe 2, that shows you why the next 2 paragraphs that you're going to read are going to explain to you why these 2 points are more correct. And again, the 2 supporting paragraphs are going to follow the same exact formula with T right here. So topic sentence, you're going to explain the general idea of supporting evidence. Then your next few sentences are going to talk about evidence. You're going to give us the information that you have. And then the next few sentences after that explains this evidence mean. What does it mean? Explain any historical context, again, just like you did with the counterclaims. And then you explain how this evidence supports your argument that you're trying to make. And you do this for both body paragraphs that you use for your supporting paragraphs. And your conclusion as a paragraph should just summarize your key points, explains any nuance or academic controversy. So whatever it is that you are arguing. So for example, if you're doing, let's say you were doing an essay on something like Adolf Hitler and his policies or something like that, then you could talk about ethnocentrism, you can talk about, the Holocaust and that kind of thing, and anti-Semitism, that type of stuff. So this is academic controversy, and, this is nuances and things like that. And then, of course, your conclusion paragraph should answer your research question directly. So this concluding paragraph should just, again, forcefully reiterate your thesis statement and claim that you made in that last sentence of your first paragraph. Remember, you are concluding this essay and your argument, but not your reflection. This is just the conclusion paragraph of your part B. Okay, so this is how this part is going to go. This is not your reflection, so don't worry about that. We'll get to that later. So what do you need to do now? You should be working on your outline. A good place to be by the end of this first class of the week should be you should have outline of a thesis paragraph. So you should have your thesis paragraph outline completed by the end of this class. Outline of counterclaim body paragraph 1 and partially completed body paragraph number 2. Okay, so if you're really pushing yourself, you should be able to get that done. Maybe not by the end of this class, but you should definitely be able to get it done before the next class. So sometime for homework or over the next few days until we see you for class number 2. You may work further ahead and do body paragraphs 3 and 4 and conclusion paragraph if you feel comfortable proceeding. So if you are in a good groove, keep moving and you're good to go. And there you have it, folks. Our lesson has concluded. So the only question I have for you is, do you have part of the historical investigation outline completed? Obviously, your answer is probably going to be no because you're just finishing this and now you should be getting ready to start the process. So we'll go ahead and let you go off to do that because we're at the end of the lesson. So there's no real required activities other than to just complete anything that's in the historical investigation notebook. And at this point, you should move off to start outlining your essay. Thank you so much for your time and have a great day.